Good for your daily dose of science here at 9:30 in the morning. Okay, we're going to talk about why 6 is the new 8. Okay, but before we can understand where we are now with the technology, we need to understand where we've been. So we're going to do a little bit of review. We're going to go through the Torres lab study. We're going to go through the NRF2 studies. Many of you will have seen some of the NRF2 stuff before because we've been talking about it so frequently. But I think it's important to have it fresh in our minds as we move into understanding why 6 is the new 8. So to begin, let's talk about the Torres lab study. The Torres lab study was a 60 participant study, placebo-controlled, double-blind test. This test was done by having participants take 8 ounces of the product per day. When taking 8 ounces per day, we found an increase in genetic transcription. Really, the takeaway of an increase in genetic transcription is that there are benefits that are had from increased genetic transcription and expression. There were 5 genes that were shown to have an increase in gene expression, and this ranged from 20 to 31%. Again, better gene transcription means better cell signaling, which means better health. This Torres lab study also provided the foundation for the keywords that we use today. Who has seen these keywords in some form or fashion? Okay, so I'm going to go through them real quick here. Redox signaling molecules are tiny, high-energy molecules. Because they are so tiny, they can be absorbed directly into the cell. Once absorbed, they act like an on-off switch, turning on cell signaling. Once a cell is turned on, it begins to signal to the cells around it. Those cells signal to the cells around them, beginning what we call the cascade or domino effect. And it's this cascade or domino effect that contributes to our resilience to stress and overall wellness. These key words came from the Torres lab study, from our NRF2 studies. It's how we understand the mechanism of action in the body. It's extremely important to how we approach research with our partners around the world at this point. So, I'd like to invite somebody to see if they can go through this. Who thinks that they can do it? Okay, hand shot up right there. Myra, we have a microphone. If you can do it, you'll get a prize.
I got a prize.
Okay, all right. Right there. Stand up, go ahead, stand up. Everybody give him a hand. Tell everybody your name, where you're from, and your rank.
Jim Prince, Southern Wyoming, Rector 700. Redox signaling molecules are very, very tiny molecules, high energy. And because they are tiny, they are easily absorbed. Once they are absorbed into the cell, they turn it on like a light switch, like a light bulb. That light bulb signals the other cells around it, which turning them on, creating a cascading effect. When those cells are cascading toward others, they're turning them on to do what they're supposed to do. And that is producing overall wellness and reducing your stress.
Hey, Jim, take whatever you want there, the renew or the radiance. Okay, so let's talk about this resilience to stress. Why is it so important, right? This cascade of keywords here, right? Tiny high-energy molecules, absorption, on-off switch, cascade effect, resilience to stress. Why do we end on resilience to stress, and why is that so important? We as human beings in the modern world are exposed to stress thousands of times a day. There's no avoiding stress. And I'm not talking just the emotional or mental stress of a modern world, but I mean very literally, if we walk outside right now and are exposed to the sun's rays, that's a form of stress. When you're exposed to pathogens, viruses, when you eat processed foods, when you eat things that are high in sugar or carbohydrates, that can cause stress in your body. What your body has to do to maintain its health and wellness is respond effectively to that stress and get back into balance. So I like to use this analogy here of a teeter-totter or a seesaw. Right now I'm in balance, I'm in the center. I've reached redox homeostasis. I go outside, I'm exposed to the sun's rays, I'm exposed to stress, and I'm knocked off balance. What do I need to do now to maintain my health and wellness? Respond to stress, right? How does the body respond to stress? The body uses redox signaling molecules to respond to stress. Is it any wonder why we see so many different health benefits and miraculous improvements in health because of redox signaling molecules? No. If your body can respond to stress, it can help maintain its own health and wellness. Your body uses, I'm going to say this again, your body uses redox signaling molecules to respond to stress and get back into balance. So with this concept of a resilience to stress, the Torrey lab study was important because it showed us an improvement and an increase in genetic expression. It also gave us a series of pathways that we could investigate into seeing some benefits. One of those pathways from the Torrey lab study that was suggested was NRF2. So I'd like to cover that a little bit, and then we'll finally get into why 6 is the new 8. The NRF2 pathway is regarded as a master switch. Remember, we talked about an on-off switch. The NRF2 pathway is one of the major tools that your body has to address oxidative stress and inflammation. It's one of the most powerful tools that your body has. It does this by producing protective proteins like glutathione. Think of glutathione and these protective proteins like bodyguards for your cells. We all want more protection from these everyday stressors that we're exposed to. But how does NRF2 work in the cell? Imagine this slide here is the inside of the cell, okay? Let me pause here. This is highly, highly technical. Do not lead with this. You do not need to know this, right? This is to help build your conviction and your knowledge around this technology that you are partnered with experts, like the vision says, the global recognized leader in cellular health and redox-based technologies, okay? So don't lead with this. This is for your information. You're here, you've earned this trip. We want to make sure your questions are answered, that you have information. Keep it simple, okay? So this is the inside of the cell. You have NRF2, which is bound to what's called a keep-1 molecule. NRF2, in order to produce glutathione, has to make its way to the nucleus. NRF2 cannot move while it's bound to keep-1, okay? How does NRF2 get released from keep-1? Redox. Someone's seen this presentation before. Redox signaling molecules donate their energy like billiard balls. They knock into this complex and it separates NRF2 from keep-1. NRF2 then goes to the nucleus. Once NRF2 is in the nucleus, those protective proteins like glutathione are produced. Those are then released to address oxidative stress and inflammation in the body. Okay? Let's look at this through the lens of the keywords now. So you have redox signaling molecule entering the cell. Well, what is that? That's a tiny, high-energy molecule absorbed into the cell. The billiard ball, redox signaling molecule knocking NRF2 off of keep-1 is the on-off switch. NRF2 going to the nucleus, glutathione being produced and being released to the body. Well, what is that? That is the cascade effect supporting a resilience to stress. So you can see how these keywords help us understand different pathways or mechanisms in the body that were pointed to by the Torrey lab study. Now, what happens if rather than leaving your body to its own devices, making its own redox signaling molecules, what happens if we can supplement with redox signaling molecules? Can you see what's going to happen? More NRF2 goes to the nucleus, which means more glutathione being produced. Again, glutathione is that protective bodyguard for your cells, going out to the body to address stress and inflammation. So again, here's another technical component, but it's super important. So on the top we have untreated control. This is a group of cells that were not treated with our product Renew 28. On the bottom are cells that were treated with Renew 28. In that first highlighted column there, it's tough to see because of the lighting, but there's green here. From the previous slides, green was NRF2, right? Blue are the different nucleus of the cells. From the slide before, we know that we need green going to blue to create glutathione. The more overlap of green and blue means more glutathione, right? So what you'll notice here is there is much more concentration of green around the nucleus than the untreated sample. You guys, this is so important right here, ready? This is visual evidence of NRF2 going to the nucleus and NRF2 being expressed to produce glutathione. Okay? This is visual evidence of a mechanism of action. So, what happens when NRF2 goes to the nucleus? What's produced? Glutathione. So after we saw the NRF2 going to the nucleus through these images, we tested glutathione levels in the cell. We saw a 40 to 55% increase depending on the test. We did a healthy cell test and a compromised cell test. And we saw a 40 to 55% increase in glutathione. We then also tested a ASEA redox supplement in addition to the Renew 28. We saw in that case a 60% increase in NRF2 expression, which leads to an increase in glutathione and other protective proteins. So we're getting to the whole point here. But as a quick summary, NRF2 is considered the master switch. It controls oxidative stress and inflammation in the body. It releases protective proteins like glutathione. And these studies represent really the first time ASEA has had a visual evidence of a mechanism of action. So back to the Torrey lab study. The Torrey lab study was important because it showed that genetic transcription had increased, that genetic activity was being increased through supplementation of the ASEA redox supplement. It was important because it proposed some pathways for us to investigate like NRF2, which led to researchers suggesting that concentration of the redox signaling molecules were important, right? So we have found in our research that concentration matters. The number of signaling molecules that are in that blue bottle matters. So we wanted to maximize the claims that the Torrey lab study had provided us, right? The claims we see on the blue bottle here in the United States. And these claims are tied to concentration. So researchers, both from the Torrey lab study as well as the NRF2 study, began asking, what can you do to manipulate the concentration of the product? We began working on the process. Right here is a flow chart of the ASEA manufacturing process in 2017. There are a couple of things here that we improved upon in order to achieve the ability to change the concentration of the product. The first is right here, within the electrolysis reactor, where the signaling molecules are made. Who's been with the company since before 2017? Okay, a lot of you. In 2017, it took ASEA 32 tanks and 60 plus hours to make one batch of ASEA. Today, we do that in one reactor in about 16 hours. What that's done is that's allowed us to remove saline tanks, it's allowed us to put sodium chloride directly into the reactor, it's helped us with some efficiency. But I'm going to show you some pictures of before and after these improvements, okay? Here's a picture of the manufacturing room in 2017. Who's been to the production facility recently? Does it look different?
Yes.
Here, there are 32 tanks. In those 32 tanks, it would take us 60 plus hours to make one batch of ASEA. Today, we do what we did in those 32 tanks in this one tank. We did this through improving the efficiency of the reactor. And a more efficient reactor makes a more stable, more effective product. Okay? Hundreds of trade secrets inside that reactor. I can't show you inside that reactor. I can show you the outside, but I can't show you the inside. So we went to work changing the reactor. The next thing we looked at was one of our purification systems for our water. Again, those of you who've been to the redox center know that there are really three compounds that denature redox signaling molecules, right? Metals, minerals, and organics. So we do everything we can to remove those from the water to enhance the efficacy and the stability of the product. So we used, in 2017, a distillation system. Who knows what distillation is? Okay, good. Distillation is simply that when you have impurities in water, when you boil water, it turns into vapor. It moves, the impurities stay in the liquid, you capture that vapor, and you condense it back into a liquid, and you're left with pure water. Extremely inefficient because you have to boil water. It takes a ton of energy to do so, and it's somewhat inconsistent. So we went from a distillation system to what we call deionization. And I'm going to show you guys some pictures. This was the distillation system we used in 2017. Our maintenance team affectionately called it the Big Blue Beast. It was very expensive to operate. It was hard to maintain parts. It was hard to maintain consistency and the purity of the water. We upgraded to a state-of-the-art deionization system. This deionization system is extremely sophisticated. In fact, it's very unique for the industry. Companies that generally are using this system are companies like microchip manufacturers that build silicon wafers. When they are depositing the separate layers on the wafer, they do a rinse with deionized water to make sure that the surface is clean. As you can imagine, a microchip is very sensitive to mineral deposition. This is the type of technology they're using to purify their water in microchip manufacturing. We use that same technology to purify our water before we make the redox signaling molecules. And we do this at 250 gallons per minute, so an extremely high output unit. So pure water, more pure water means better stability in the product, means a better product. And then finally, we went to this collection tank. So if you guys remember in the image here, I'll go back really quickly. There's a few more slides that I'm anticipating, but here, these collection tanks. What we'd have to do is after the electrolysis of 32 tanks for 60 plus hours, we would have to collect these into some storage tanks just off the image. We'd have to chill the water here. After the water was chilled, it would go into these tanks. We'd electrolyze in 32 tanks and then transfer into a collection tank. Instead of a collection tank, we're now able to do what's called a dilution tank. We're able to rapidly quench the reaction. That is these large tanks in the back. So each one of those tanks represents one batch or one lot of ASEA. Okay, 4,000 gallons. It's about 15,000 bottles. Current global demand is anywhere between 4 and 6 lots or tanks a week. The redox facility currently has capacity to do about 25 per week. So we're operating at a 20 to 30% of maximum capacity for the facility. You'd probably have to find another warehouse. We'd run out of warehouse storage, but as far as manufacturing goes, we are scaled for global growth. So these three improvements to the process led to a more stable and a more effective product. And it allowed us to increase the concentration of the product by 30%. So this leads us us to the punchline. Why 6 is the new 8? If you do the math, 6 times 1.3, which is the 30% increase, is about 7.8. Throw in the extra 2 doses that Scott talked about, and that gets you to the same amount of product or redox signaling molecules as what was studied in the Torrey labs with 8 ounces. So what we've done is we've allowed you to reduce the acquisition cost of the redox signaling molecules that you need to achieve the benefits of the Torrey lab study that was studying an 8-ounce dose in 2017. Today you get the same amount of redox signaling molecules in 6 ounces that you did in 2017 with 8 ounces. Now in closing, these benefits that you can now achieve at the optimal level of 6 ounces a day. Again, there are those of you I saw when Scott asked you to raise your hands and say how much you take. There are those of you that take more than 6 ounces. If that's working for you, great. We're not trying to change it. But what we're doing is we're providing what is the optimal level and the best value to obtain that level with our bundle. These benefits come from our central technology of cellular communication, of cellular signaling. You achieve this through effective communication of cell to cell. So let's look at what that looks like. Here you have cells communicating to each other. This is your network of cellular communication. As we age, as we're exposed to stress, as we eat poor food, our communication breaks down. So here, you lose some signals. Exposed to more stress, you lose more ability to communicate. What we are doing with our redox signaling technology is restoring the cellular communication and allowing the cells to function as they need. This helps your body take care of itself. The Torrey lab study showed that we play at the genetic and cellular level. This provides unique benefits, and it's really what separates us from anything else out on the market. We are the only company that can play all of the keys on the keyboard. In fact, the different keys, there are companies that come out and will say, hey, we've got a product that helps inflammatory response. We've got companies that come out and say, hey, we're gonna own cardiovascular health. We're gonna boost the immune system. We're gonna build some gut health products. We're gonna help with hormone balance. These companies build products to play one key on the keyboard. Your health is a complex melody, a beautiful piece of music, different chords, different notes being played in harmony. If you play one key effectively, that's great, but you must play the entire keyboard in order to maintain your health and wellness. Your body knows how to play that keyboard, but at times its ability is compromised or breaks down a little bit. Our product is the only product, because it plays at the genetic and cellular level, that can play the entire keyboard. So, 6 is the new 8. We're super excited about this bundle, the ability to decrease the cost of acquisition in order to be able to get what we consider an optimal dose, right? We're super excited about where this technology is headed. I wish I could tell you some of the things we're seeing at the university level. I can't. It's coming, I promise. But the most exciting times for this technology are ahead of us. We have some amazing, amazing things in the works coming shortly, and we're really excited about it. So thank you so much.